Hi, I'm Mark Sumner, CEO and founder of Robertson Sumner. Welcome to the Channel Chat podcast, where we will share learnings, best practices and failures with some of the biggest names in the IT industry, all with the simple aim of being the go-to place for IT sales professionals and managers to learn from others with the ultimate goal of maximising performance and growing the channel. Hello, I'm Mark Sumner, host of the Channel Chat podcast show, and today I am in the studio with Ghazal Asif, Senior Vice President of Worldwide Channels for Cybereason. Ghazal, hello. How are you doing?
Hello, Mark. I am doing splendid. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm really good. Thanks for coming in this morning via Uber, as we said, so you do work on the way. As I kick off the show, normally I ask someone how they get into this sort of crazy industry of IT. Yeah. So hopefully you can kick me off where you've actually got your first job in IT sales.
Yeah, so my first job in IT sales was at HP. And I was one of their inside salespeople. We called it business development manager at the time because it sounded fancy. But really, I was an inside sales rep working just outside of Glasgow. And it's funny because when I went to interview, I had no experience of IT, but I just knew that in IT sales you earn a lot of money. So I was like, I need to do that job. And I was very, very lucky because one of the folks that interviewed me at the time, his name is Alan McIntosh. He's still there. He's a phenomenal leader. He took a chance on me and he was like, you don't really have any of the experience and, I didn't have also a qualification within IT either.
You had no experience in sales?
None whatsoever. So it was all brand new for me. But I really prepared well for that interview. And I think during the interview process, he sort of seen that this is someone that's clearly driven and hungry and I'm going to take a chance. And the rest is history.
So you mentioned there obviously preparing well for the interview.
Yeah.
What did you actually do to prepare well for an interview? Because you had no experience or no qualifications to get into that job.
None whatsoever. I downloaded the HP annual report, and I was so young at the time, and as I said, my first job in IT tech, and a lot of the terminology that was in that report, I didn't even understand it. Yeah. I didn't know what a beta was. And so what I started to do was look at the report and then start Googling things that I didn't, at that time it was actually AOL, putting into the search, so what does this mean? And just starting to learn about HP, the different business units within HP, where in the world that they operate, which are their business lines that seemed more profitable. And that gave me the confidence that to then go into the interview and say, okay, fine, I know that I don't have the experience. I know there's going to be so many candidates walking through that have way more experience than I do. But let me tell you how much I've learned about HP thus far, and I really believe that I'd be the right person for this job.
Yeah, and that preparation obviously stood you in good stead and you got the job.
I got the job.
So tell me about your career at HP. How long were you there?
I was there for 2 years. I left HP just around the time that I was going on The Apprentice. So I was the youngest person on the show. Then after I went on The Apprentice, I did my own business for a short period of time. Realised that I could talk the talk, but definitely not walk the walk. I was like, I need to go and get some more work experience. So went back into work, back into tech. And then I think my big break, and everyone has that moment where, right place, right time, a company that's growing. For me, that happened when I joined a company called Meraki, and that's when my career just took off.
And what was the job at Meraki? What did you get the job there for?
So my first role at Meraki was actually a step down from what I was doing previously, but it just goes to show sometimes you need to take a step back to take a couple of steps forward. I joined as channel account manager in the UK. And I remember my boss at the time, Pete Atkin, phenomenal individual and leader. I was quite nervous about making that move because I was I had this massive region. I was developing business in Middle East and Africa, and now I've just got the UK. And he was like, just come in, and we're growing so fast, and if you prove yourself, you'll continue to flourish. And I sort of had a bit of trust in him, and also trust in my ability that if I am in the right place, I'm going to really give it my all.
Yeah, was that a reservation going back into just the UK role then? So were you actually worried about? Because it was obviously a step down.
It was a step down. I was worried about how is it going to look on my resume, me taking a smaller role. How will it look? How will I feel when I now all of a sudden, I had my, you build up your status with these airlines. How will I feel when I lose the status with the airlines? And now instead of, getting on a flight to South Africa as an example. Now I'm going to, Manchester, driving up to Manchester, like will I still find the same enjoyment in that?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a risk. It was a very calculated risk, but one at the time I thought was worth taking.
Yeah, and what would you say with candidates that are doing in a similar situation where they're in a big role, they're not maybe enjoying it, but they want to go for a different company but take a step back, and it is risky, isn't it?
It's risky.
What advice would you give them?
It's risky. I think that you have to look at each opportunity in isolation. And if you are working with a company that is growing really fast, and if you know yourself, you have a proven track record, you're with a great leadership team, it's a market that's also growing, the risk is worth taking a lot of the times. But if some of those factors aren't there, then the risk just becomes bigger, and you just have to weigh it up.
Do a bit of due diligence when you're doing it.
A lot of due diligence, and doing due diligence now is a lot easier because everyone is so connected. We're living in a very connected world.
Yeah.
You're only a few connections away on LinkedIn to somebody that that may or may not work there.
Yeah.
All the information about companies is online, from funding to founders and their background. So you can make a calculated risk by looking at a lot of different factors and then saying, okay, right now at this point in my career, if I was to take the calculated risk, like what's the potential upside, and then what's the downside, and then you have to weigh it up and do what's right for you. Great.
So Meraki, kick off, channel canvas to UK. Then what happened?
Then I crushed it. We had just a phenomenal year that year, and I went to Pete and I was like, I want to get promoted and I want a bump in my salary. Now I think you should go about doing it a little bit differently. Pete tolerated a lot of my crap at the time, but I almost kind of I was almost able to be a little bit audacious in my asks because I was also performing. The worst thing is that you're not performing and then you're like, I want promotion, or I want a pay jump, or in your head you think you're performing and like your boss doesn't. There's a disconnect in expectations. But I knew that I was performing and I knew that I wanted the next step. So then I got promoted to build and grow the team in Europe, which I was super, super thrilled to do. Smash that.
And they put you into a management role straight away from just managing the UK channel.
Correct. So I was managing the UK channel for probably about a year and a half,
right.
And then they promoted me into a leadership role, and then I built the team over in Europe. First time being a leader, first time hiring very talented people and then coaching those people. It's a bit of a learning curve.
It's a big jump as well, isn't it?
It's a huge jump. You've gone from that time a small territory to a very large one, from being an individual contributor to managing people. But I was surrounded by great leaders, and this is the thing that if I find myself very lucky because my first leadership role I was surrounded by probably some of the best leaders that I've ever worked with. And so that makes it easier because you have at least a benchmark that, you have a lot of people to look up to and say, I know that Pete does a really good job of, leaning in and listening. I know that there's someone called Andy McCauley does an amazing job of inspiring people. And there's just so many different people. And I think it's a lot harder when you don't have those people that you look up to and you respect. So then you're trying to figure out who am I as a leader? And then you also don't have great role models, and that's when it becomes a little tougher.
What was the biggest challenge you found going from managing the UK, looking after yourself, smashing it, being a sole contributor, into suddenly massive territory, people looking up to you for inspiration?
Yeah.
What was the biggest challenge?
I think the biggest challenge is not thinking about yourself. Because you're so wired to think about, this is my number. Yeah. How am I going to go achieve my number? And it's very focused on you, and when you overachieve, you get that buzz because you know that you did it, and then to shift your focus from just thinking about you to then thinking about how is it that I can help others be successful, and taking yourself out of it. It's not easy. It's actually quite a difficult adjustment, and some leaders don't successfully make it, and that's why they're really poor leaders, is because all they're thinking about is their own ego, their own wallet, how they're looking in front of their own bosses. So the great leaders are able to sort of look at themselves and say, okay, this is me, but I am an important part of this equation, but I'm not the full equation. Like, what's the full equation here? And a lot of leaders just aren't able to make that jump, unfortunately.
When did you know it was the right time to ask that promotion? Obviously, there was a couple of key factors there. You were crushing it, doing the numbers, which is great, and you were being recognised. But you did also say you asked for the opportunity as well. You went up proactively. They didn't come up to you. You proactively asked for it.
Yes.
So when do you think is the right opportunity? Sorry, the right time to ask for the opportunity when you're doing really well at work, but they're maybe not asking you for the promotion?
I think you have to take a step back and look at the overall business. So for example, let's say you're doing extremely well and you're like, I am like knocking my numbers out the parks. And in the sales role, like, you know what good looks like first and foremost, you have to hit your numbers, right? So if you're hitting your numbers, and then no one's tapping you on the shoulder, then I think before you assume that it's either you're not capable or people aren't looking at you in that light, take a step back and look at the business. It could be that there's no roles available at that time. It could be the company is not hiring, the particular role that you want. It could be that there are other things going in the background, like, for example, performance issues with somebody else that are being managed out. Sometimes you don't have like knowledge of the full picture. So the best thing to do is not jump to conclusions and just take a step back and look at the overall business and say, okay, the role that I want, is that role like available today? Have I heard of my manager having budget for that role? Because at the end of the day, like, it's an investment in the business. Budget for that role. If he doesn't have budget for that role, if I was him, does it make sense for me to ask for that promotion right now if he doesn't have budget and maybe there's other priorities? So sort of get a really good feeling for what does the overall picture look like. And then if you still think, well, you know what, I think is reasonable for me to ask, then you should put together a case and ask. Now, for me, it was a little bit easier because the team was, like, Meraki was on fire and the team was growing and we were hiring salespeople, we were hiring channel salespeople, and we had to grow the team. So I thought, if we're growing the team is going to need a leader here because Pete's not going to manage them sitting out of San Francisco. And who better than the person who's like done the role, who's proven themselves, who's based locally. And that's when I put my hand up. And I was very, very fortunate that, there wasn't a lot of other competition, because I was the first person in the channel on the ground. So it wasn't I was competing with other people. And it just felt like the natural transition.
So a lot of things there, really, good candidate, but also good timing, right company on fire, moving up. So
yes, and that's the thing that, a lot of people ask me, if I want to sort of move from, individual contributor to leader, senior leader, director, VP, whatever, like, what are the things that you need to do to get there? And I thought about it a lot over the last few years, and there's a few factors that are really important. Like, first and foremost, like, you've got to be a performer. Like, you've got to be a top performer. I was reading this book somewhere and I love this quote, which is, there's always room for the best, which there is. If you commit yourself to being the best, you'll always have a seat at that table. So number one, like, commit yourself to being the best and overperforming, and that gives you the right to ask for so many different things. So that's like the first thing. The thing is that if you're a top performer and if you're in a company that is not growing, if you're working for a really large corporate as an example, and they're maybe like downsizing or they're growing at like 1% every year, and places like that, generally you have to wait for either your boss to die or leave.
Yeah.
You don't want your boss to die, and if he's a great boss, you probably don't want him to leave either.
Yeah.
And you're just like twiddling your thumbs, like, when is it going to be my time? So then in that case, the quickest way to get promotion is go to a company that's growing really fast, that's doing well, that needs talented people, that's growing really fast. And in tech, there's so many great examples of companies like that, even if it's a step back. Then if you take that role and you already have that momentum in the company, plus you're performing and you're building a name for yourself, like, you're much more likely to get on that fast track to senior leadership.
Fantastic. So, established a leader over the European role, managing people the first time. Mm-hmm. Talk about that experience and how you got on with it.
I think the first few months were really tough, because you have the responsibility of quickly hiding people as fast as you can. You have no clue what you're doing, really, even though you're like, I got this covered. Like, deep down, you have no Scooby-Doo what you're doing. And then on top of that, you have a number that you have to hit. The overall company is growing as well, so everyone's got high expectations. And So it's the first few months, and again, like taking yourself out of the equation, all the relationships I had built with partners, but like feeling excited to then sort of transition those over to the team. All those things take a lot of time. But then once I got into the swing of things and got myself like into like an operational cadence, you have your 101s, you have your team meetings, you have a good idea of how everyone's going to hit their number individually, and then how as a team you're going to hit the ultimate goal, which was the number that rolled up to me. That all happened, probably took like 6 months to get into the swing of things. Then I started to really enjoy it once I sort of wrapped my arms around it. And again, I was very lucky that I was always being given feedback from my boss, so that helps a lot when you're in a new role and you just don't know how you're doing, whether it's good, bad or ugly, like being given that feedback. So I remember those feedback loops were really, really important. After 6 months I felt like, okay, I know what I'm doing now. Built the team, hired, I think it was like 10 people, hired about 10 people. And then the global role opened up, where I had the opportunity to grow out the team globally. We already had folks dotted all over the place, but this was the first time that you had like a director level role looking after the team globally, based out of San Francisco. And I thought to myself, I don't know if I want to move to San Francisco. I love London, I have my friends here, my family's in Scotland, and I just don't know if like moving to San Fran is the right thing to do. So I raised my hand for that role. And deep down, I still don't know if I wanted to move. Like, I hadn't decided yet, but I thought...
You put your hat in the ring.
You have to.
See if
I got it. Like, if I get the job, then I'll worry
decide.
about it. I'll decide. But no point worrying about the move if I don't get the job. So raised my hand for it and, got the job.
Right.
But the job...
Big decision then to make.
Massive decision. And I was like, I just don't know if I want to move. And, with decisions like that, I always think, what's the worst that can happen? Like, worst case scenario, I take the job, I move my entire life over, it's terrible, it sucks.
You come back.
I come back, And at that point, I'd spoken to so many people. Like, I'd spoken to so many of the senior leaders within Meraki. I'd spoken to my friends, I'd spoken to my family, weren't particularly happy. I'd spoken to my family. And most people were like, this could be like the opportunity of a lifetime.
Do you think that's a big consideration when you've got friends, or particularly maybe a close family, when you've got an opportunity, very exciting, they almost don't want you to do it because they're going to lose that sort of connection to you. So do you think that's a big thing to consider when you want to progress your career? Or do you think it should be actually a bit more soul-minded, actually this is good for me?
Yeah, I think you should be thinking about thing is, like, everyone's like life situation's different, right? Now I was lucky at the time that I didn't have a husband, I didn't have kids, I didn't have a mortgage. But if you have those other factors, that decision becomes a little bit harder for you, because then you have to think about other people. But in my case, even though my family didn't necessarily want me to go, I knew that I have to do what's right for me, because ultimately if I'm happy, like, they're going to be happy. And so I sort of put myself first, and I went for it. And that's the right approach for me. But for other people, like, when you do have, a circle of, partner, kids, whatever, it is more difficult.
When you went into that leadership role, you'd obviously been a successful contributor yourself.
Yes.
When hiring for people yourself, were you looking for mini-yous, or were you looking for a diversity, or were you looking for different types of characters for those 10 people, or were you looking for just actually, let's get mini-me's and actually replicate the success that I've had?
I love that question. So initially, I thought leadership was, if I can get everyone else to do what I do, then they're going to be super successful. Yeah. And for them to do what I do, like, they've got to be kind of similar to me. And so you have this, like, kind of, and a lot of people still do it, and it's really bad, where you have this kind of like box of, outgoing, I'm like pretty aggressive, quite aggressive, bit of an alpha, ton of energy. And so I hired a lot. My initial like folks that I hired, like, all fitted that profile. Right. And then I started just like learning about this whole idea about diversity, and realized like the big massive mistakes that I was making, because when you're looking at competence and personality are two very different things. You could have somebody who is an introvert and who is extremely intelligent and very, very driven, but they're an introvert, and they could be just as competent, if not more as competent as you. I've had people that I interviewed at the start, and they'd obviously been successful because I looked at the resume, But I just thought, oh, they don't have that, rah, rah, rah. They don't have that charisma. And although all those things are important, again, it doesn't necessarily mean that if you have those things, it automatically means you're going to be a top performer.
How do you get that out of interviews? So if someone comes into the meeting,
Yeah.
big personality, loads of energy, you can see it in the room.
Yes.
But if they're not that, how do you drag it out of an interview to think, actually, yeah, you could do the job, but you're a bit of an introvert? How do you sort of drag it out of them?
I think you just have to ask a lot of competency-based questions. If you ask people, and the biggest indicator is track record. It's a lot harder when someone doesn't have a track record. But if they've got at least 5 years of work experience, just digging in and asking them a lot of questions on how did they do problem solving, when they overachieved, what was it how did they overachieve? Like, do they know why they were successful? And asking for specific examples, and then taking those examples, then going really, really deep, you can usually suss out whether someone has that competence, even if they're a little bit of an introvert. Like my youngest sister, as an example, she just graduated as a doctor, so she started to work as a hospital. And when you meet her, she's such an introvert. She's an introvert, but she's one of the smartest people that I know. And someone like that could do like my job like 10 times over easily if she wanted to, because she just is so high in EQ and IQ. But if I was to interview her when I was first a leader, I would have been like, mate, you're a wee bit on the quiet side.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if you could come in and light up a room, but the way that she lights up a room is because she really leans in and cares about people and asks people a lot of questions. And I think that actually over like relationships, it channels a lot about relationships, holds more weight.
Feed off that over a longer period.
100%, as opposed to that initial rah, 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 right, okay, let's shake hands, fantastic, and now I'm on my phone again,
No, absolutely. So Cisco came into the equation with Meraki.
Yes.
How did that happen? What role were you in then when they sort of took over?
So at that time, I hadn't been promoted to director. I was leading the team.
Right.
I was leading and building the team. And here I was, because I had sort of the last time I was in tech was HP, and I'd left this like big company to go to this like startup, and it was so much fun. Like I made so many friends, and it was so much fun. And then when we got the email, and I remember the email so clearly because the way that the first few sentences were worded from Sanjit, who was the CEO and founder at the time, was like, we've had like such a phenomenal growth so far. We built up this amazing team, and we've had a lot of offers, and we had an offer recently, and it's sort of you think the way that the email is written initially that it's going to be we've turned those down, and I'm just like,
going to carry on.
Exactly, we're going to carry on as we are, so don't listen to the noise and rumours. But the email goes on to say that we've had an offer and it's being announced and we've accepted it. The Cisco is acquiring us for $1.2 billion, and I was like, no, I don't want to be part of Cisco. I want to be part of Meraki. That's the reason why I joined. And a lot of us at the time felt the same way, because we joined at a startup, and that's the kind of environment that we wanted to be in. But Cisco was extremely smart in that they acquired Meraki, and they kept Meraki as a separate business unit. Left it alone, completely autonomous. So we actually had like the comfort of knowing that you're part of a big organization. You're not going to run out of cash. You have this huge network of people to leverage and take advantage of, plus Cisco's partners. But you kind of have the advantage
still the feel of
the startup,
yeah.
Where everyone knows.
Which is the best of both worlds, isn't it?
It's the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I stayed for so many years.
What do you think people should consider when they're going through an acquisition, or it's going to upcome an acquisition? What do you see as the positives and negatives, and what can go wrong with it as well?
Yeah. So there's so many different pluses and minuses on both sides. So on the plus, if you start working in a larger company, and the company has got a huge network of people and partners, you can leverage that like almost instantly, which is fantastic. There's a lot of different places you can take your career in a big company. So if you're in sales, you can move into customer success. If you're in your customer success, you can move into pre-sales or more technical roles. Because it's such a large organization, there's so many places for you to move to. And in established companies, you've got people and leaders that have been there for a long time. You can learn off like really great people. I met some really great people whilst I was at Cisco. The downside is that you may not move as fast as you usually do, because now you do have a hierarchy of people that you need to go and get approvals from, since the buck doesn't just stop with your CEO. Sometimes there's a little bit of friction. With Meraki and Cisco, when we were acquired, there was a little bit of friction because you had the Cisco team that said, look, we want to go and sell this way, and the Meraki team saying, look, no, we've got like the Meraki product and we want to sell this way. And those kind of, when a startup joins a big company, there is sometimes that initial friction, and it's a little bit uncomfortable because you've gone from having a great time to then worrying about things that you didn't have to worry about before.
Yeah.
Now I need to let this person know and keep them on the loop because this account is also their account, and it's just, it's just like, and sometimes it's a little bit unnecessary noise. And then the other downside is, you're working at a big corporate, so sometimes you lose a bit of that buzz and that energy. And then if you're the type of person that, you want that startup type of thing on your career, and if you're at that corporate for too long, it kind of takes you away from that startup life and gets you a little bit too comfortable.
Yeah, because when you obviously got that promotion to leadership, you mentioned you were the only one in the UK and it was growing fast, and you almost like you were a shoo-in for the role.
Yes.
What should people look for when they get acquired by a bigger company? There might be lots of other stakeholders now.
Yes.
When is it they should sort of think, I should stay or go or hold out? Because some people when they go to an acquisition, they hold out thinking it might change, and it doesn't change for 2 or 3 years. They've almost wasted their time.
Yeah.
So when do you think is the right sort of time to sort of like leave the company or actually make a move?
I think you have to listen to your inner voice. A lot of the times what happens is we sort of know that something you've stayed somewhere and you've almost outstayed your welcome, and you just know it, in your gut you kind of know it, but you justify it in your head saying, well, it might change, another year's coming, they're making additional investments.
Yeah.
When they make these additional investments, this might happen, or now they've given me this stock and I should stay here. They call the golden handcuffs. I should stay here because I have this additional stock. But ultimately, if you wake up in the morning and you're not excited about what you do, it doesn't matter, how comfortable you are. It doesn't matter how much money you're earning. You're not going to bring your best to work. You just can't, unless you wake up in the morning and you're like, I'm super excited for this day. And there's days that you're not. Sometimes I wake up, I'm like, I'm really tired for this. I'm knackered. But most days you should wake up feeling excited, and if you don't feel excited, it's time for you to either look for something else within your company, or look outside your company and see what else is out there.
Okay. So moving on then, you got the opportunity to be your first directorship role.
Yes.
So how was that? That must have been daunting as well.
Oh my gosh, well, I was also doing an international move at the same time. So I had to pack my bags and move to San Francisco. And the thing is on the surface, you're like, it's the US, it can't be that different. But, it's so far. It's 8-hour time difference, 10.5-hour flight. It's such a long way from home. So it was emotional, and because it all happened so fast, starting this role and then emotionally being away from the UK, from my friends and my family. In San Francisco, I had a couple of friends, but not a ton. And it's a completely different environment. You're building your life from scratch. You don't have a social security number. You don't have a bank account. You don't have a mobile. You've got nothing. And you don't appreciate all these things, how on
simple
autopilot.
things, yeah.
Simple things.
Take for granted, yeah.
You take for granted that you have Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
You had none of these things. You land there. I'm in a hotel, and I'm like, okay, I need to find somewhere to live, I guess, I guess I can't be staying in this hotel. And so I had 4 suitcases. Of course, I only brought my clothes with me, so I had 4 suitcases. And then the hunt started to find a place. And at the back of my mind, I didn't give myself any.
You don't know the area. You don't know nothing about it.
I don't know nothing about it. I know nothing. So I was just like, what, I want to stay close to the office, because with a new role, I know I'll probably be working long hours. So let me just slim down my search. And by the way, that's a great plan. If you're starting somewhere new, be as close to office as possible, so you don't have a horrible commute to contend with.
Yeah. Make it as simple as possible.
As simple as possible, and increase your probability of satisfaction.
Yeah.
So I stayed very close to the office in a beautiful area called Channel Mission Bay. The building was called Channel Mission, the building I was staying in. I was like, Channel, it's got to be a sign, I've got to live here. So I was so close to the office, and that first 3 months were rough, because I was sorting out all, even ordering a bed, and people didn't understand my accent. You know, like people didn't understand my accent, just getting a bed through the door. I'm like, for God's sake, you know, can they just go online and order this thing? Because no one understands what I'm saying. You know, and then getting your social security number, getting a bank account set up and getting a mobile and all the rest of it. So once all the like crappy logistical boring things had been taken care of and I got my apartment, then I felt like I could really focus on the role. And so it was a big jump from first line leader to second line. And then you're sort of learning leadership all over again, you know, like you go from being an individual contributor and just leading yourself, then being a first line leader and leading other people, and then a second line leader, now you're leading leaders. And every time you make that switch, like you have to sort of relearn leadership like multiple times over. And so that was difficult as well, plus being new in a brand new city. What
was the biggest challenge from then leading leaders? Because that is they've obviously got their own idea on leadership, but they're doing the role themselves.
They're doing the role themselves. I think it's almost like taking a step back, because at that point you become an enabler. At that point you become an enabler on enabling other people to be successful in their own leadership style. And it's difficult because now you're like, yeah, but when I was leading, like I did it this way, and when I was leading, I was managing performance or lack thereof this way. And there's some best practices that I think, you know, every leader should implement, but you have to almost take a step back and give people the room to learn and grow whatever their leadership skills and abilities are. And by that point, like, you know, you're, like I said, you're there as an enabler. You're there to enable people to bring out the best in them, and that does involve sometimes taking a step back, which I sometimes find hard to do.
Okay, so how long did you do that role for?
So I did that role for about 2 years, just under 2 years. Okay. And I was in San Francisco. At this point, I was having the time of my life. I was able to come home like once every few months, thankfully. So I didn't get too homesick. I'd made some really great friends out there, very talented individuals. And then I was tapped on the shoulder to do a VP role, still within Cisco, but for another organization that Cisco was acquiring called AppDynamics. And that's when you kind of know that you've made it, because now you're no longer like actively like going out and looking for opportunities, but opportunities are coming to you. Yeah. And that was like a big realization, because you work so hard. Like, you know, moving like pre Meraki, I feel like I always worked very, very hard. Then making such a big sacrifice in my life and moving my life over on the name of a career, and then you almost ask yourself, like, when am I going to feel like I've made it? You know, like when does that point come? And I think it's different for everyone. Everyone's got their own markers. But when I was tapped on the shoulder from someone that I really, really respect, Rowan Trollope, his name is, for that role, I was like,
I've been recognised here.
I've been recognised here. I think I've made it. You know, to be recognised within Cisco, which is a $50 billion company, by a senior executive over there, I was like, okay. Yeah. You know.
To you,
yeah, game on.
Yeah, brilliant. And then, so let's talk about that move over there. So what happened? You moved to AppDynamics.
Move over to AppDynamics. That was a VP level role, and again, like relearning leadership all over again. That point, you're much more involved in strategy. And you're much less sort of operational day to day, because now you're sort of third line leader, and it was an emotional change for me, because prior to that I'd been at Meraki for probably almost 5.5 years, and I almost feel like I grew up with many people. Like some of the people that I met at Meraki, like we're still very good friends with today, and leaving Meraki to go to AppDynamics almost was like the end of one pretty amazing era and chapter of my life and the start of a new one. So it was very bittersweet, and almost a sense that you're very grown up now. And in the first few months were difficult, because you know you're building those relationships. It's amazing when you have relationships at a company. The comfort level, it's like this big warm cozy comfort blanket. You know who to go to if you need anything. People often come to you. You're never short of work. You're never short of resource. You're never short of support. You're like a recognized, known entity. And it just creates this like feel good factor.
Yeah.
And then when you leave that to go somewhere brand new, you have to establish your credibility all over again, your network all over again.
Good, can do the role.
Exactly. You know, and I've always been the youngest. You know, in every team I've always been the youngest. So you kind of have to work that little bit, and on top of that, a female, you almost have to sort of work that little bit harder to prove yourself. And so that sort of cycle of proving myself started all over again at App Dynamics. But again, I was really lucky that my leader was a phenomenal leader. Dali, his name is. You know, so he really pushed me to take my leadership to the next level. And I was surrounded by just like some really great and very talented people. And it was like a new industry because I went from networking to application performance management, software. So there's a lot of things to sort of learn all over again. But I really enjoyed the challenge. It was really, really, after the first few months, it was really good.
At that stage of your career, obviously, when you'd been bold enough to ask for the opportunity for leadership, you wanted it, you've been proven, you asked for the promotion. Yeah. How do people get recognised for that sort of key roles, those director roles, those third line roles, without asking for it? Because it sounded like they come to you.
Yeah.
So is it just you were being mega successful, or was it just you were in the right place at the right time, or they had the skills? What's the combination where they actually think, Giselle, let's go to her, she's the person. So how do you put yourself in a position where they're going to come to you?
I think first is, and you said it, which is, you know, you just have to be a superstar in your work, you know. Right. You have to be the best in whatever you're doing, whatever it is, whether it's sales, technical, whatever it is, you just have to be the best. And being the best is not easy because there's other people who also want to be the best as well. But it means like sometimes working long hours. It means making those sacrifices where you think, I'm going to finish off this one thing instead of going out with my friends. So that's the first thing. Like, you have to be a top performer. Top performers get recognized because everyone wants a top performer in their team. Everyone wants top performers to do really, really well. So once you've got that success and you're recognized as a top performer, then you should try doing things that are outside of just your role and your remit. So, you know, case in point, at Meraki, like I started like Women of Meraki, and that sort of put me in this almost in this kind of limelight where people that sort of knew me as this person that led the channels now also knew me as a big advocate for diversity and, you know, as a almost
ambassador,
like and as an ambassador for women. And so you should find those at first, like do a phenomenal job and crush that. Then like find those things that you believe you can bring value to and you're passionate about that are outside of your role. And then you get additional recognition from those things as well. And then make sure that, you know, you're vocal about your success.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the times, like, you kind of think that people know. Now, if you're a top performer, people generally will know that you're a top performer. But there might be other great things that you've done along the way. There might be, you know, someone that you've really helped. You might be coaching someone. Don't be shy to talk about it, because that then ends up like building your brand. And what people then care about when they're promoting other people is this a top performer? And everything else they know about you other than your like hard facts and performance is your brand.
Yeah.
You know? And then at that point you should have built enough of a brand where people are like, this is like, I'm going to go tap this person on the shoulder because I think they're the right person for the job.
Yeah, because there's been talented,
yes.
And then there's been talented in putting yourself in the spotlight
yes.
to be recognised, isn't there? Because there's a lot of talented people will not get recognised.
They will not get recognised, you know, and I've seen that with some of my closest friends, where they are so talented, so extremely smart, but have struggled to get that next promotion because they've not done enough to sort of build that brand, to nurture those relationships with people that are influential, you know, to sort of step outside of their day-to-day work and go make an impact in other parts of the business. And I think if you want to like really fast track your career and be in a point where you're being recognized, tapped on the shoulder, like you have to do all of those things. Yeah,
no, great advice, Giselle. What would you look for when you're hiring a manager yourself? So when you're a leader of leaders, what do you look for in a manager?
I look for, first and foremost, someone who's intelligent. There's someone that I know called Jeremy Duggan. I don't know if you've heard of him. Phenomenal leader, and he always says, if God didn't give you a brain, then I can't give someone a brain. So that's the first thing. Like, you look for someone who's intelligent. Then I would look for someone who has coached people in the past, and like, how have they coached them? Because if you're in a role where you just acquired a team of people, and let's just say that team of people is doing really, really well, then you have to sort of dig in and find out, okay, well, how did you take them to the next level? So then I would like find out, okay, well, you know, what did you do to coach people to to become top performers? And then on the flip side, how do you deal with performance issues? Like, how would you, if you know that someone's clearly not performing, like what would you do in that scenario? So I look for people that have like natural leadership ability, where they care about other people, and they have as little ego as possible, but who are not scared to nip issues in the bud. And someone who has like a high level of integrity. We all want to work for leaders that you can look up to and respect and say, I like this person not only because they're smart and they bring out the best in me, but they have a high level of integrity. And that's something sometimes a little bit harder to test for, but that's where I would do like a really thorough back channel, and find out, like, is this person that someone that has integrity? And to be fair, the last few people that I have hired as leaders, they've all been internal promotions. I would much rather recognize like great talented people and put them in leadership roles than do a search outside, because it's just a lot harder to find great leaders.
And that can be demotivating for internal people, can't it?
100%.
You bring someone in who's been waiting for that spotlight,
100%.
and they don't get it. So
and they don't get it, exactly.
Yeah.
So I would always try and find, even if they're not
promote from within
ready,
if you can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, you've worked for a lot of great leaders
Yes.
over the years.
Yes.
What would you say makes these great leaders great?
Multiple things. If I look at each sort of person that I define as a great leader, Pete Atkin had just an amazing, and he's the person I worked the longest for. He had a great way of listening to people. Because if you think about it, like when someone's talking, often you're thinking about what am I going to respond with.
Yeah, next question.
And the next question. When every time I would talk to Pete, I would feel like he is really listening to me. And when someone is really listening to you, they're getting a deep understanding of whatever your challenge and your problem is. And then you'd ask a lot of questions. Like, this is the other thing which I struggled with when I became leaders, is people would come to me for like, I don't know this, and I'd be the first to be like, here you go, here's the answer. Whereas Pete did a really good job of asking a lot of questions that helped me get to the answer myself, because it's already there. Yeah. But he would hold back
coaching
and just
you to
exactly
work out yourself.
Exactly. So just a phenomenal coach, listening and asked a lot of questions. Great coaching. So he did that. Like he's like hands down the best. Then I worked for this guy called Dali Reich. He had just this amazing way of inspiring people. He would talk about you building your legacy, and how sometimes it's very, very difficult, but you want to do a role which you can look back at and say, look, I've like built this like amazing legacy.
That you're proud of.
Yeah, that you're really, really proud of. And he had this like really, sometimes a bit overwhelming, like energy and passion, but it was very, very infectious, and he kind of made you believe that you can do more than you thought you could. Then there's a guy called Jeremy Duggan. Jeremy for me was a great leader because I really feel like he believed in me. He was a massive advocate for me, really, really believed in me, was that person I could always turn to in confidence. And I think that's also what made him a great leader, is because people know when you believe in them, and that feeling when someone believes in you, it's priceless. Yeah. It's so priceless.
And it makes you want to work hard, doesn't it?
It makes you want to work hard. You're
twice as hard and prove it right.
Exactly, 100%. You're like, you believe in me. You've given me this chance.
You're right.
And you're right. Like, I want to show you that you're 100% right.
Yeah.
So there's some of the ingredients, I think. And this is the thing, leadership is so hard, because if you notice, like, I didn't just mention like one person. Yeah. Like, everyone's got
elements from different people.
Elements of different people. And then if you can sort of look across the room and say, this person does this well, this person does it, and then take inspiration from all those qualities that you admire, and then make them like real for you. I think the other thing that people end up doing is you end up sort of emulating other leaders. If you look up to someone, you're like, this person does this, and he says things this way, and he acts in this way, and I'm just going to act in that way. You end up being like so insincere to yourself. But if you can take all these things that you admire in other people, and then internalize them and see what they mean to you, and then make it authentic for you.
Yeah, that's the key, making it authentic.
100%.
You can't be acting a role that you can't keep up
exactly.
every day, day in, day out.
And people will figure out very fast that you're not being authentic.
So When did you leave Meraki, Cisco Meraki?
Cisco Meraki, I left, it was almost, I think about 2.5 years ago, 3 years
And what
ago.
prompted the move? Why leave?
Well, I went to App Dynamics.
Oh, sorry, App Dynamics.
App Dynamics. So App Dynamics I left December of last year.
Right.
And that was my like step out of Cisco.
That must have been a big move, because your career's been fantastic for then, the promotions and the accolades and the recognition.
Yeah.
Why leave at that point?
I just want to go back into a startup, you know? Like the best times that I've had in my life were working in companies where you're sort of part of that growth. And I love the idea of building something. Like when you've put the blood, sweat and tears of building something and you see it coming to fruition, that feeling is priceless. It's so hard, but that feeling is priceless. So I wanted to be back in an environment where I was like building again. Now I wasn't actively looking. When the executive recruiter contacted me, I wasn't looking to leave App Dynamics. I wanted to stay on a little bit longer, sort of round off the things that I was working on. But it just seemed like such a great opportunity. And an opportunity to be back in a startup company that's doing really well, great executive teams, that I was like, I might regret this if I don't go for it now.
We touched on it earlier, did you feel you had to sort of, even though you'd had a really good career and proved yourself, did you feel you had to go and prove yourself again?
100%! All over again, Mark! All over again. Because this time is a different industry. Now it's security, you know, so everything that I knew about networking and then, you know, the APM space, now like a lot of those things translate into building programs and operations, but then I have to learn like the security industry from ground up. You're like, you have to prove yourself all over again. Yeah,
go on. And so you're still there?
I'm still there.
And tell me about the role, what you're doing there now. What's good about that?
Yes.
It's Cybereason, isn't it?
Yes, Cybereason. So I'm Senior Vice President of Worldwide Channels. So I get to run the full indirect go-to-market. Cybereason has turned to this 100% sort of channel model. And it's very exciting for me and my team to be at the forefront of that change, and really build like what it means to have a channel business from ground up. Cisco I think did a pretty good job, to be honest. Cisco has a very, very mature channel, but then when you're building the back end, the operations, the programs, you get to do it from scratch all by yourself. You get to take the best of everything that you've learned, and also, you know, look at the things that didn't work previously and sort of avoid some of those pitfalls. And so it's been really, really exciting. It's been an exciting journey so far.
Okay, great. So moving on slightly, on your profile, I've seen founder global lead at Dynamics for Women, founder global lead for women at Meraki, Cisco channel chief 2017-2018. So something you're very passionate about. Now the Women's CRM Festival was next month.
Yeah.
What made you be so passionate about the women in tech? What made you? Obviously, you are a woman in technology, but
tech,
you know they're doing that and they've been an ambassador for it. What made you go forward for it?
Yes. So this was probably about five years ago now. Sheryl Sandberg bought this book called Lean In, and at the time I was in London and I was leading the team. So I was a manager for the European team. Pete, who was my manager, he bought this book for his entire leadership team, and he's like, look, this book is a really great book, and you know, it sort of helps see the experience that women have in the workplace a little bit differently. And he gave it to everyone, like men and women on his team, and he said, like, I want you guys to read it, and then on one of our leadership calls we're going to discuss this book. And at the time I wasn't a big reader, to be honest. Like, I've got into reading over the last few years, but at the time I was like, oh gosh, I'm gonna have to read this like big book. And on top of that, he's making us discuss it, so I can't just like blag my way through it. I actually have to like read this book. So I started reading it, and I was just blown away, because what I had been doing up until that point is living in almost like blissful ignorance, where I never realized that a lot of the sort of challenges that women had, that I had been through them myself, but hadn't really realized, because when I walked into the workplace, I never really thought of myself as like different from anyone else, you know. I never thought I'm a woman or I'm the youngest or anything. I was just like, I'm here to be the best I can be, and that's it. And then it was after I read that I was like, yes, that's happened to me, and oh my gosh, that's happened to me. And for the first time, it was almost like this like veil had been lifted from my eyes, and I could see like I could see the challenges that I had faced, and then I thought, if I face those challenges and I'm like relatively successful at that point,
the women are with, everyone's,
what are other women going through?
Yeah.
And I have 3 younger sisters, and you know, I've always been like, what I've wanted for them is like, I hope you're, whatever you choose, like I hope you're super successful in it, whatever that might be. And it's just sad to think that their gender might hinder them, even though they're extremely talented and might perform just as well as others. And there's so many studies on this, you know, that there is a massive gender gap. So it's the first time I had that realization, that you know, there is women do experience the workplace differently.
Yeah.
But the good news is that you can do something about it. You know, the first and foremost, you can raise awareness about it, and then, you know, women themselves can show up at work doing some things slightly differently, and be aware of the fact that they experience the workplace differently as well. And I wanted to do something about it.
What can employers do? So how can they make a raise awareness of it? Because there's all one thing doing.
Yes.
You know, let's have a CRM festival, and you know,
Yes.
there's awareness, but they're actually doing something concrete about it. So
100%.
what do you think employers can actually do?
Yeah.
Is there anything tangible?
Yes, there is. There's lots of things. So first of all, like, you have to commit yourself at the top to say, look, we want to have a diverse team. And diversity is not just in gender, but in the people that you hire, the schools that you hire from, backgrounds. And so you have to look at diversity as a whole for a start. And that's got to start with the top leadership, and they have to commit to it. Then there's like very tactical things you can do. So for example, when you are hiring people, making sure that, you know, people are coming through a panel, that panel itself is diverse. Like, there's a statistic where if you've got a female candidate and there's at least one female candidate that's in a panel, like, her chance of making it to the next stage, like, increases like 40%. You know, yes.
Really, is that much?
Yes,
Wow.
It's really that much. So there's like tactical things you could do on the recruitment side. You could make sure you are recruiting from a pool of people that you don't necessarily go from. So for example, if you are in software sales, in software sales there's just not a lot of women, there's just not that many, there just is what it is. You know, maybe it makes sense for you to recruit from medical sales and get people that are extremely smart, very, very talented, and groom them so that you've got future software sales rock stars. Hire people that are early in their career. Like, if you look at the pool of diverse candidates, it actually gets less and less diverse the further down the line with more seniority. But if you hire early in career people and maybe have some kind of program, whether it's BDR, inside sales, and you sort of hire a much more diverse pool at the start, you can groom people and build that diversity.
Be able to retain them a bit more.
Exactly, and people will stay. People will stay when they know that, you know, they've started their career and you've really invested in them. That's a great way of building diversity. So that's all like efforts at like start, so getting people in.
Yeah.
Then when people are in, you have to take an honest look at yourself and say, are we building an environment that promotes diversity, that celebrates diversity? So what do I mean by this? For example, just like small things. You know, if you're celebrating Christmas, like, I'm Muslim and, you know, we celebrate Eid. Like, do you also send a little note to someone and say, look, you know, like, happy Eid? And you sort of celebrate like people's like differences in those like small things. When you've got a room full of people, like, you'll have women in there, you'll have men, you'll have extroverts, you'll have introverts, you'll have people that know what they're doing, you'll have people that are very prepared, people that are not prepared, but giving everyone the same chance. So sending an agenda beforehand in the meeting so everyone has the same chance to prepare, everyone knows what they need to come to the table with. If you know that there's someone that's not going to raise their hand or speak up because it's just their personality, leaning in and saying, hey Mark, do you have, well, I know that you're not an introvert, but do you have something to add that you'd like to add to this conversation? Being very thoughtful in those environments where there's a lot of other people. And then when you've got people, like diverse people, and you're looking at the room and you're like, wow, like, I've created a diverse team. Are you like promoting people with a very structured process? So you're trying to weed out biases, you know, because biases exist. The thing with biases is I have them too. They all exist, but it's just about trying to be aware of those biases. And there's so many trainings out there that I was like amazed. I've been to so many of these, and every single time I learn something new. Making sure everyone goes to the same training so people are aware that these are the biases. In sales, for example, like locker room talk, so common, you know. And when I was younger, like, the kind of things that I heard just shocking, like really, really bad. Guys talking about girls that they had slept with, going to strip clubs, you know, and I talk about these things openly right now because they're important to talk about. And I was the only female there that would be listening to that. Now for them, it's like, it's not that they are like singling me out and saying I don't want to be the person that being like, hey, guys, can you not talk like that? Like, you know, it's kind of making me feel uncomfortable. You don't want to be that person either. So that's where you have to be aware, you know, as a male, you have to be aware, as a leader, you have to be aware that are people talking in a way where everyone else feels comfortable. And this is why diversity is so important, because when you have like a group of people that think the same way, that talk the same way, you have that one person that doesn't, then that person's going to be very uncomfortable.
Feel isolated, wouldn't they?
They feel isolated, exactly. You know, so then doing that and being very, very proactive. And when you see or hear something like that, like nipping it in the bud, you know, like there's so many times where people didn't speak up. You know, forget leaders, but just like people that I considered as people that I respect, like didn't speak up, and there's things that were being said that were wrong. They were just wrong. They were so offensive against women and just so derogatory, and others didn't speak up. So I think at a very tactical level, like that's something every single person can do. If you know there's language that's being used that's going to make others uncomfortable, like the thing is like work these days is becoming, you know, that very casual environment, you know, you have friends and stuff, but at the end of the day, it's a workplace. It should be professional. And if you know that some of those professional boundaries are getting a little bit fuzzy, then again, very tactically, speak up and make a stance and say this is not okay, because this does not make everyone feel comfortable, and it creates a less diverse and comfortable environment.
There's only sort of 16.9% of women in tech at the moment, which is a real shame, because it's a great industry, lots of money. Now, when you said you started your career, the one thing you said, I want to go into sales, there's lots of money in it. How can we get people or females right at the start of their careers to sort of say, yes, I'll be interested in it? Because there's one thing, when we get them into it, there's diversity, but we're not even getting them into the game.
Right. You're so right.
How can we do that?
I think it's doing things like this. Like, I think, first of all, like more women need to speak up and talk about all the reasons why, like tech and sales is such a great place to be. You know, if you look at tech itself, like a lot of people wrongly assume that you need to be technical to be in tech, but you don't. I mean, I don't have a technical degree, because there's so many different disciplines. You can go into marketing, you could go into technical function, you could go into sales. So I think women that are in tech need to speak up and accept their role as role models, because there's so few of us, and do more about it. So doing things like this as an example, sharing on LinkedIn a great day that you've had, proactively going to like your local school or your local college and speaking to the females there about like why you chose this career, why is it so great, and just like raising that awareness to begin with. And I think if every single woman that was in tech like made a pact that every single week I'm going to like speak to one young person, one young female about why I love my job in tech, I think that in itself would inspire a lot of young women.
Just naturally spreading the word.
Spreading the word.
Yeah.
And because women don't even know that this is a potential career if they're not taking computer science. That's a whole other problem. More women, more girls should take STEM related degrees, but you know, outside of that, they just don't know that there's even that option available to them.
Okay, let's move on a couple of slightly. So let's move on to sort of vendors. Now, I get a lot of feedback from candidates saying, you know, vendors are going direct, and even when they've got a channel set up.
Yeah.
Why would vendors go direct and sort of cutting out or working against the partner? You know, why does that happen?
It sucks when it happens. The biggest reason, well, there's two reasons why it happens. Number one is usually to do with some level of the way that the deal will be structured. So there's just not enough margin in it for the partner. And therefore they'll say, well, look, you know, if we want to win this deal, we have to be very price competitive. The customer's only got this budget, and if we do it through a partner, like we're just going to lose the deal. So that's one reason, and it's terrible. It's really, really bad. And the second reason is pressure of missing your forecast or your commit, which is a very, very common one, where you know deal is committed, you're doing it through a partner, and you know there's only a few days left. The paperwork through the partner still needs to be done. The customer is like, hey, you know, can I do this deal direct? You'll get the PO, and then to get the PO in on time, and because of customer's request, you take it direct. And both of those reasons are unacceptable.
So channel programs in general, because Giselle, haven't really evolved, have they, over the last 10 or 15 years? Why do you think that is?
I just think that there's not been a lot of innovation in channel programs. If you think about the way that a lot of partners, like their own businesses have evolved. You've gone from selling hardware to software. A lot of partners have made this massive shift in investment into selling services. You've got lots of different types of business models like recurring revenue, ARR, and to be fair, the big organizations like Cisco being one of them that have very mature channel organizations, it's hard to make that shift because even make a tiny change makes a massive difference to our partner. So I think there's been a lack of innovation. Some of these organizations are just so big that they don't make that shift fast enough because it affects so many other things, and as a result you've got like pretty much the same incentives for partners. The same programs are structured in the same way instead of like
dull, isn't it?
It's so boring.
Yeah.
It's so boring. When we launched our partner program, we just did it recently. Like we went to our top partners and we were like, "What do you want to see in a partner program? You tell us."
Get actual feedback from them.
Feedback.
Instead of just telling them what this.
Instead of being like, "Here you go, here's your partner program. Here you go, sign here." Like go and find it. Like go get feedback from the market. Go get feedback from your customers, your partners, or your customers. Find out from them what is it that they are looking for. What would it take for you to be the best vendor for them? What would it take for you to get their commitment? Lean in, understand their business. And when you do that, you will come up with something, even if it's really, really simple, you'll come up with something that is well appreciated, well adopted, and something that is like different to the age-old partner programs that have been around for decades without any change.
Why don't vendors do that?
Tell me.
I don't know many vendors that are doing that at all.
You tell me. We did it at Cybereason. I think sometimes you almost kind of have this arrogance as a vendor. I mean, if you think about it, like most people that run partner programs have done it multiple times before, right? And so you'll sort of take the experience that you've got from running partner programs and you'll just copy and paste it because it's the easiest thing to do. You have a playbook and you just copy and paste it. And you have this kind of arrogance that, I'm the vendor and I kind of know what I'm doing and I know how to motivate partners. And really, like, you haven't even spoken to them about their business and like what is it they want to see. So I think it's a simple thing that every vendor should every single year be okay with disrupting their own partner program every year.
Channel company. Let's define channel company.
Yes.
Now, I hear about a lot of channel companies saying, "Well, I'm going to hire a few channel people and we're going to become channel friendly." What would you say defines a channel company?
Definitely not that. For sure not that. So this is like I think it's a common mistake that a lot of very senior executives make. They're like, for us to build a channel, we're going to go hire channel people, and now we're like channel friendly. Really, building a channel company is about the way that the company operates internally, first and foremost. So what do I mean by that? For example, how is it the sales team gets paid? If the sales team within their compensation plan, it's not totally comp neutral and they are disincentivized to work with partners, you're going to create a ton of conflict. It should be completely comp neutral. The way that products are developed, if you're going after managed service providers, are you developing your product in a way that appeals to them with specific things like multi-tenancy? Operations, when a partner has a deal registration issue or problem or something, how quickly can they resolve it? And do you have the resource in the back end to make sure that they resolve it? When you're thinking about programs, how is it that you develop your programs? Do you develop programs in a way where you are looking at different types of partners and making sure that your program covers all? Or are you just taking this like cookie cutter approach? So
it's a lot, isn't it? It's if I was a vendor, I was thinking that being channel friendly. It's like it sounds easy, just getting a few channel people.
That's right.
But that is a lot of investment and a lot of time.
It's a lot of investment. It's a lot of time. And it's not easy because you're educating an entire company to operate differently, and it becomes a sort of a mindset, and it has to become part of the DNA of an organization. And I would say hiring channel people is like the last thing you should do. First, get your internal operations sorted and make sure all the different functions are all on board. The back end is all on board. Then do you go and execute that with great channel salespeople or great channel account managers? But you certainly don't do it the flip side around.
Do you think a company can work alongside indirect and direct channels, or do you think you should be either a channel or direct firm?
I have seen hybrid models work really, really well. I mean, if you can commit to every dollar being booked through a partner, that's what we're committing to. Every dollar from a customer, we're going to book through a partner. Whether that's new business, whether that's upsells, whether that's renewals, then you can still have that direct touch from a sales team. You can still have a sales team that's calling on customers. In fact, sometimes it's a great thing. Like, there's nothing better that any partner likes than you taking a deal to them and saying, look, we've been working this deal. We want to transact this through you as a start to our relationship, and for you to sort of learn what it is that we do. And in a lot of cases when you're starting up, it's the right thing to do. You sort of have a sales team. That sales team books all of their business to the channel. They're passing deals through the channel, and then in addition to that, you're sort of building out the channel partners, the channel sales team, channel support, etc. But I've seen that hybrid model work very, very well, as long as when you say direct, it's direct touch to an end customer, but all the bookings are done through partners. That's the main thing.
Okay, great. Now, some of the questions I got asked to ask you was about your leadership style and how you sort of manage people. So one of the questions I asked is, how do you manage underperformance in your team if you were experiencing it and you're seeing it?
I think the first thing you have to do is you have to acknowledge it and nip it in the bud very, very quickly. Sometimes you will have a great relationship with people. You'll think that someone's a really nice girl or a really nice guy, and you're like, but they're really trying really hard. And the thing you have to sort of remember in the moment is that when it comes to performance, like, effort is a very small part of it if it's not producing the results. So the first thing that I would do before we go into this sort of formal like PIP and all the rest of it, I would sit down with that individual person or their manager so they can have the discussion, and I would let them know, like, these are the expectations of your role, and very specifically, these are the expectations that you're not meeting in the role. I think a lot of the times these things drag on, and before
they blur as well, don't they?
They become really blurry, and someone's like, well, I thought I'm doing this, and I'm doing, I thought that
I'm doing okay in that area or this area.
Not this area.
Yeah.
And like, no one sits down and says, look, I'm going to have this conversation with you, and this is going to be a difficult conversation because I'm going to give you some very honest feedback. Like, here's the areas that I think you're meeting my expectations, and these are the areas that you're not. And I want to ask you, like, do you want to meet these expectations? Because these are the expectations of the role. Because if at that point that person's like, no, I'm like done, I'm checked out here, then there's nothing you can do to coach them. You can't save them. But if you get a good feeling after that they want to do well, that they are committed, there's good level of skill and will there, and you have to sort of make that calculation in your own head. Then you want to move them to a period of sort of performance and coaching. To be honest, PIP to me is like the last straw. At that point, you've kind of decided you don't want this person in your organisation, and that's the last thing that you do. I
was going to say, because when people say PIP, Performance Improvement Plan, normally people go to a PIP, they're out. They're done. They're gone. Why is that? Shouldn't it be that point it's like, yes, obviously you've maybe done a few things before, but when I hear that, we're going on a PIP, it should be, we're going on a PIP, we're going to improve. Most people, when they go on a PIP, they're out, they're checked out already. So how can we change that as well?
Yeah.
Or is it those conversations you said before are happening anyway, so it's almost like that's not the man in the coffin, but that's if they can't do this, they're going anyway.
Yeah, I think with performance management, there's like, it's like a journey, right? And the journey will end either with this person getting themselves back on track, or they will go on a PIP. And a PIP really is, it's like, everyone kind of knows once you're on a PIP, like, it's unlikely.
You're in trouble, aren't you?
You are in trouble. It's unlikely that, I have seen some PIPs work out, but it's most cases, it's usually too late. So as a leader, you want to try and honestly, a PIP is time consuming and it's horrible for both parties. No one likes doing PIPs. So as a leader, it's best that you nip it in the bud before it even gets to that. Either you assess someone's skill level and the skill is not up to scratch and you think, even with coaching, like, this person's not going to make it, or the will is not there, they just don't want to. They might be extremely skilled, very talented, and ideally you want to try and get to those two things as quickly as possible prior to getting to the PIP. Once you've got to the PIP, it's like pretty much already too late for both parties.
Mm-hmm. So hopefully we don't have those people in our organisations, but what traits would you look for in the top billers? What do they demonstrate that you think, yes, this is going to be a top performer when I hire them?
Someone who has shown like hunger, someone who's like a hustler. Thing is, there's like no substitute for like just like hard work and grind. So usually before you hire someone and they've done things in the previous roles, maybe even outside of work, that shows they're highly motivated, they're very, very driven, and they'll do whatever it takes to A, be the best, and B, get the job done. Like people like that, you just know that they're going to do well. So that's like one thing, just like pure attitude and like that hustle and that grind and being okay with it. The second thing is intellect. I think intellect is extremely important, especially now where we're moving into environments where tech is becoming actually more and more complicated. So you need people that can understand and learn that, especially over a long period of time. They've got the intellectual
horsepower to take it on.
100% and learn, develop. And then it's someone that really wants to like develop and learn and grow. When you give someone feedback, like I do this a lot in interviews, right at the start, I'll give someone like a tiny bit of feedback. Maybe their answers are like very long-winded, and I'll say like, hey, listen, like we only have half an hour, and when I'm asking you a question, you're quite wordy. And they take that on board, and then they're a little bit more thoughtful. You're like, this person's very coachable. So if you've got someone who is hungry, driven, very intelligent, and on top of that, they're coachable, like that to me, like I'd hire people like that all day long, and I know that they'll do really well.
Brilliant. My last question for you,
yes.
And you're a brilliant person to ask this because you can ask any element of it. I always ask everyone, what is the one trait or one bit of advice they'd give to someone who's either a contributor or a leader? And now I'm going to put in a leader of leaders of that, because you can answer all of them, that if they really want to make a name for themselves. Now, you've made a name for yourselves, you've asked for the opportunity to get promoted, you've been an ambassador, you've put yourself in the spotlight, and you've been recognised, and then people have come to you as a leader.
Yes.
So what's the one bit of advice you'd say, either a contributor, a manager, or a leader? You'd say, if you want to make a name for yourself, this is what you got to do.
I don't think there's one thing, unfortunately. There's no silver bullet. As an individual contributor, actually, there is one thing. There's one thing that goes across all. Is like, commit yourself to being the best. No matter what role you're doing, what level you're at, commit yourself to being the best within that role, and assess for yourself what the best looks like. Because if you don't really know, and you don't really know what those examples are, you don't really know what you're working towards. So first of all, like, commit yourself to being the best no matter what role you're doing, what level of seniority you're at, how many years experience you have. Like, that should be like number one. Then as an individual contributor, like, that's your opportunity to really learn, put in the time to learn. If there's anything that you don't know, even if it's like one little word, if you don't know what SAS stands for, it's okay. Like, at one point nobody knew what SAS, like, go and find out. Like, don't be afraid to ask. And if you're a little bit shy, you think you're going to look silly, just Google it. Like, you've got so much knowledge available at your fingertips that you should be able to, like, every single week take it a couple of hours and learn and build that foundation. It's really, really important. Then so that's my advice here. Then as a leader, to make a name for yourself, I would say take on some of those projects that are going to help the business. Like, now you're already a leader, you're managing people, hopefully you're doing the basics of putting your team first and looking out for them and being an advocate and champion for them. But outside of that, if you want to make a name for yourself as a leader within the organization, like, go and do some things. Like, go and solve a hard problem that no one else has been able to solve, and roll your sleeves up and say, I'm going to go solve that problem. No one's going to say, no, you can't do it. So that's as a leader. And then as an executive, as like a leader of leaders, at that point, I think it becomes about, taking off your own hat and looking at the lens through everyone else around you and showing strong leadership in every room that you walk into, every conversation that you have, because what you say really matters. And never forget that. At that point, like, you're a sort of respected entity within the organization. You have this fancy pants title, and don't underestimate that every word that comes out of your mouth has an impact on people, and really be conscious and aware of what kind of impact are you having.
Brilliant. You've been a fantastic guest. If anyone wants to reach out to you direct about women in tech or anything we discussed, can they contact you for LinkedIn?
Absolutely. Contact me on LinkedIn. Love hearing from people.
Brilliant.
So anytime, if I could be of use, absolutely.
Brilliant. Great. Thanks for your time.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us and listening to another episode of our Channel Chat podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard and are listening on iTunes, please could you give us a review and subscribe in order to get the newest episodes as soon as they're released. Otherwise, as always, we release an episode every Thursday at midday, so hopefully you can join us then.